Fight and Talk back again in today. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Mr. Unbelievable himself, Brad Wharton, head of Cage Warriors at Trilogy. Brad, first things first, mates, how's lockdown going, isolation going for you?
I mean, I'm locked in a hotel room, so I feel like a prisoner of war or something. It's well, maybe not that bad. It's quite a nice hotel, but no, it's all right, man. Look, it's 24 hours, and at the end of it, we get to do this incredible series of events. So the juice is worth the squeeze at the end of the day.
I know we were talking a little bit off camera there as well, and I mean, credit to Cage Warriors from sort of the outset to make sure everything's been in place to make sure that these 3 nights go ahead. But I mean, even down to the hotel, you've got your own restrictions in the hotel. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so everyone arrived at the hotel, and as soon as you arrive, you register, you get a COVID test. So I've had the full, down the back of the throat, up both nostrils. It's horrible. I know people have probably seen the videos of people having it done, but until you've had it done, man, absolutely rotten experience. But then, yeah, we got a room key. They gave us a room key and took a breakfast order off us because obviously we can't leave the room for 24 hours. So they're going to come leave breakfast outside our rooms in the morning. Basically, the tests all got taken on like a motorbike courier to a helicopter that went to Northern Ireland. And the test should be back for everyone today about 3 p.m. tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon, I'll get a knock at my door and they'll tell me if I'm negative or I'm positive. If I'm negative, I'm allowed into a bubble within the hotel. So we were allowed to walk from our rooms to any one of a number of areas within the hotel that are private to Cage Warriors. So when we walk down the corridors, we have to wear a mask. We have our own lift, so we don't have to touch any lift buttons, don't have to touch anything really. And we've got like a private bar to socialise in and to get food and stuff. And then the only time we leave the bubble is to actually travel to the event in a coach. So no one's getting taxis, no one's getting public transport. And then we're essentially in that bubble until Sunday morning, at which point we can leave. Obviously, there'll be people fighting on Thursday who will leave Thursday night or Friday morning. But for the staff, the crew, we're here till Sunday morning and we're not allowed to leave. So I don't know what these new restrictions that have come in today are saying about the hotel bar. We've been told I've got a little sheet here from the hotel that says we've got a private bar that's open until 3 a.m. on Saturday night. So kind of hoping that Boris's plans don't scupper that and I can try and stay up and watch the UFC, but we'll see.
Is it beer connoisseur you are, Brad? I'm sure you've got some tinnies in your room ready to go just in case. There we go. So, I mean, of course, everybody's got everything crossed that everybody makes it through. There's no positive tests and we get to see all these incredible fights. So if we do move on to that Thursday night, the first night of action on the Trilogy, it's sort of like the battle of the flyweights, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been talking to people all week about this particular night, and it's just been really interesting because obviously it wasn't too long ago that the UFC basically said, well, we're kind of done with the whole flyweight division thing now, and it seemed to drop off. Everyone's having a few extra chips with the dinner on an evening to try and get up to 135 pounds, but it's back in the UFC, and obviously Cage Warriors is like one of the leading developmental paths to the UFC, so it's back in Cage Warriors as well. And if you look at the kind of talent on show at the moment, Conor Hignett, Adam Amasinga, Shad Hak, Jake Hadley, Samir Faiddine, Luke Shanks, and later on in the week as well, you've got Sam Creasy taking on LeBlond. That's 4 big flyweight fights, and outside of the title fight, I think a big spectacular win for any of those guys puts them right there in the running.
If you look at that Conor and Adam fight, both men will be used to fighting behind closed doors. Arguably had very different Cage Warriors 113. Conor, of course, coming back with that incredible victory, sort of from the brink of defeat, and Adam with almost a punch-perfect victory, really. I mean, I think we can see some bombs getting thrown in this one, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam is like a super athlete. I think he's got his brother in his corner with him tonight as well, and his brother's out. He's heading like the Performance Institute for the UFC in China as the sort of the top guy over there, and I think he's here actually this week in his brother's corner. So I know that's going to be a big boost for Adam. but in terms of being an athlete, Adam's right up there with the best of them. He can go and go and go. That's some tough matchups so far in his career, and I think that's probably reflected in his record. But in terms of raw talent and potential, this guy's not more than a win or two away from the Cage Warriors title, easy peasy, and probably not more than 2 or 3 wins away from the UFC if he can get those racked up one after the other. And Higner, it's the same, man. Look, the thing with the flyweight division in the UK and Europe is it's not massive. It's not like lightweight. It's not like welterweight. So you see guys with a couple of losses on their record, just like kind of 8 to 10 years ago, you saw all the UFC flyweights coming in, and they had messy records. But the reason why was because they'd all fought each other. And if you constantly fight top guys, you're going to lose every now and again because all your opponents are top guys. Look, Conor Higner, I think he's about 24, and I called one of Conor's fights for the first time 8 years ago. 16 years of age, knocked out a 30-odd-year-old bloke. This guy's got experience. He's still very young. He's still got the majority of his career ahead of him. And like you said, we saw his resilience last time out, right? He was stuck in that triangle for a huge portion of the second round. Looked like his head was going to pop off at one point. And to come back and get that massive KO, he's got resilience, he's got toughness, and he's got power into the third round. So that for me is, if you can ask me to pick a sleeper for fight of the night, that's definitely going to be up there.
I mean, if we move on now as well, Jake Hadley and Saj Haq. Jake Hadley's debut for Cage Warriors, and Saj hasn't fought in that Cage Warriors cage for a little while. I mean, I spoke to Jake a few weeks ago, and he certainly didn't pull any punches when he told me what he sort of made of the division and how he sort of seen this playing out. I mean, this is another unbelievable fight. I think for Jake, it's probably his biggest test, but for Saj to be coming back off quite a long layoff, really, it's a big test for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Saj hasn't fought for nearly 2 years, right? It's somewhere around that, and he's not fought in Cage Warriors since 2016. He fought Sam Creasy. And man, Saj is talented. He's a guy I've always enjoyed watching on Cage Warriors. It's really funny. Like early in his pro career, he had a reputation as a real grinder, but then he developed this like crazy movement and great footwork, great head movement. And some of the fights he's been in on Cage Warriors over the years, like the fight with Martin McDonough. If you ever want to go back and watch that, Cage Warriors 60 something, 67, I think, maybe 68. Check his Tapology record. It's a great fight. It's a real like wild brawl, and his head movement, his pinpoint striking in that, absolutely nuts. So great to see Saj back in there, and for my money, with an emphatic win over someone like Jake Hadley, he's right back. He's right back in the conversation about who fights for the title next. But Jake, exactly the same, man. You talked about his kind of his sort of vision of the flyweight landscape as he sees it, and I think that's very much with him stood at the top, carrying everyone's heads, severed heads around with him. Look, you can't really doubt what Jake says, because there are probably many guys out there who are 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, saying I'm the best guy in the world. But this is a guy who's literally gone to the other side of the world and beat a seasoned professional for a legitimate world title. He's one of those guys that he talks the talk and he backs it up in the cage as well. And there's not many flyweights that you're going to match Jake Hadley up with at this level and think, well, he's definitely not got a chance here, because he's got a chance against anyone at this level. And I think, fingers crossed, everything is absolutely fine for Thursday. But I think if something were to happen in the title fight situation and Ian Dean was to say, hey, Jake, do you fancy fighting for the title instead? He'd be right up there, and he wouldn't be a massive underdog.
Yeah, I think you're bang on with that. I mean, like I say, when I spoke to Jake, he certainly was ready for a title fight now. He sort of believes in himself that like a big win over Saj, and he doesn't need the Cage Warriors belt. He thinks the UFC will be looking at him straight away from that. But we do mention that title fight, so let's move to it. Of course, Samir Faiddine against Luke Shanks. The bout originally scheduled for pre-COVID, and then the world came to a standstill. It's great to see that's been put back on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously there were a few fights planned for March, and that March card that we did behind closed doors kind of fell apart purely because the international guys just couldn't get in, and some of those fights now we're probably not going to see because guys have either moved on or they signed with other promotions, etc., etc. So it's nice to see Samir and Luke matched up again because again I was really looking forward to that fight in March. So it's going to be great to finally see it play out. And look, these guys have had an extra where are we now? Like an extra 6 months. They've not had to fight, so they've not picked up any new injuries. In terms of like stuff that's happened to them in the cage, they've just had like extra time to work on the craft, and 6 months worth of going to bed and thinking about that guy that they've got to step into the cage with. So I'm sure there's like a lot of these guys kind of build their opponent up as a boogeyman or the guy they've got to stop to get that victory. So I'm sure we're going to see two really focused, determined, and above all else, well-prepared guys on Thursday.
If we quickly as well look at the two other bouts on that main card, I mean, we've got the big one on Saturday, of course, Mason Jones against Adam Proctor, but we've got Madas Flaminis and Aaron Khalid, Mick Stanton in Figlag as well on that card. So, I mean, a big win for any of them four men could see them be the next ones to challenge for that welterweight title as well, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Aaron Khalid is one of the most underrated guys in that division at the moment. 9-5-1 is the record, and you look at the guys he's lost to, and there's no slouches on there. And you think, he went 6 hard rounds with Ross Houston, gave Ross everything he could handle for the majority of those fights. For me, he's right up there. Of course, Aaron was going to fight Tom Kong Watson at one point, which I think if he'd have had that fight and beat Tom, then all of a sudden Aaron's got a lot of hype behind him. He's kind of taken that spotlight. As it is, he's kind of flew under the radar because, and no, this is no knock on Aaron. Obviously, it's just that there's been so many big names in that division over the past couple of years. Your Alex Lahores, your Nick Dalbys, your Ross Houstons, Carl Amasu. There's just been so many. Craig White, obviously going to the UFC without the title. So this could be Aaron Khalid's time to shine. But look, Mick Stano's no slouch, right? This is the guy who's been around the block many, many times. Originally started off as an amateur, an unlicensed boxer. I know he's had a lot of boxing matches at various levels over the years. I've been calling mixed fights for years. He's fought for us on FCC many a time as an amateur and again as a pro. And Mick was always a guy who would stand and bang it out, or deck guys and ground and pound them. He's training with ASW now, and all of a sudden he's turned into like some NCAA grappling stud shooting double legs from across the cage. And it's just been great to see that progression. You look at maybe the Michael Eunice fight, for example. Yeah. He just brought his wrestling to bear so much in that. Lost out to James Webb last time, but that's no shame. James Webb, former champion and top-ranked guy in that division. Stano's back down at welterweight, which for me, it might be a bit more difficult for him to make, but that's his division, I think, size-wise. I think that's going to be a real fun scrap. It's going to be a real, not so much nip and tuck. It's going to be a wild back and forth kind of affair, and I'm very much looking forward to it.